you got to kind of just let people kind of catch on to a lot of this information when it comes to UCCs and being like politically independent, or what you want to call politically sovereign, whatever terms you want to use. I mean, it could get really technical. You got to kind of like, especially when you're on a public format doing it like this. And to me, this is kind of like a book or diary. You got to kind of like give it to the people in spurts a little bit, because these people are, I mean, like, many of you are conscious, but when you start doing this stuff like offline and like from like ground zero, you'll start to really see how ignorant people really are when it comes to understanding what they're really in, like what you're really born into. Like, I want to get into part two of the Roswell thing and go all deep into it and stuff like that, but I really got to get you to understand, like, what you were born into. Like, you are really a fucking corporation owned by a really seriously uh, what word do I want to use? An artificial yet intelligent force that's outside of our time reference. And they own you, and they created us. And it hasn't been too long. See, that's the thing. It really hasn't been too long. Like, most people are actually, I'm going to talk more about this on my next episode I'm going to start going into cloning soon. After I finish up talking about the corporations in connection with the aliens of Roswell. But most of us are clones, man. I say us because I'm just saying that, on a broad level. I mean, I can't tell you you're a clone for sure, but I'm saying, what I am saying is this. The United States of America, see, they don't tell us the truth. The military is keeping a lot of secrets. And at some point in the United States of America, in the late 1800s going into the 1900s, everybody was wiped out. And this happened a couple of times, actually. But this definitely happened somewhere between the 1800s and the 1900s. Everybody was strategically, though, not wiped out in a world catastrophe like a bomb being dropped or something like that, but wiped out strategically by the military and replaced. And if you study some information, they've called this voodoo killings, actually. And this took place from like the 1800s going up until like the 1930s. So it's deep, because a lot of people that you read about in history, like, for instance, I'm going to give you an example. And a lot of people aren't going to like this, but I got to keep it real with you. It's like, for instance, when you read about Marcus Garvey in history, right? You don't understand that when you read about Marcus Garvey, for one thing, you're reading about like 3 different characters in history. And one of those characters is actually a Caucasian, believe it or not. And Marcus Garvey was cloned. See, it's a lot of stuff that people don't realize or whatever. So Marcus Garvey's blood was cloned, and a lot of, like, what you would call melanated people over here now have his blood in them, like, a lot. And they don't teach us this stuff, so they start talking about slavery and you came from Africa, and that's not the, I mean, I'm not saying that those stories didn't happen. What they're not teaching you is that these people were strategically wiped out and separated from Africa, and their blood was taken and mixed in with Europeans, Asians, and all different races. And this is where you get the 13th bloodline, or what we are today. Here, we are the 13th bloodline here. And that's what I'm trying to get you to see. So in order, until you can connect with that, and you know what I'm saying, and you still got this paperwork and all of that type of stuff, like I'm saying, you are still considered a corporation. You know what I'm saying? They made us like that for a reason, because they made us the 13th bloodline because they wanted to slave us, man. And that's what's like essentially going on right now, is because they needed, just like they talk about the stories of Anunnaki, they needed somebody to work the mines and all of this. Don't you think people discovered those stories back in the 1800s and they wanted to reproduce and do the same shit the Sumerians and all of that was doing? That's all it really is. They're just doing the same shit that the Sumerians was doing. It's like a recycled story. However, what they're not teaching us is that we are the victims of that. And I'm going to give more proof as time goes on. That's why I'm kind of like just gradually giving you a little bit of information as time. So until you learn stuff like this, you can't advance to the higher levels, because you don't even know real history. Who really did exist and who didn't, who was really running what and who wasn't. Who was George Washington? What was that really about? Who was Benjamin Franklin? Who was Franklin Delano Roosevelt? Who are these people? This is stuff that I'm going to talk about. So Just having a good morning. I'm gonna try to keep the videos coming if you know God willing and the Most High willing. I'm having a problem here locally because they're looking at me like I'm serious, man. Like you would think that I was moving drugs to do this. Like you would think I'm saying in these videos, I'm saying you would think these videos were like drugs. The way that you know what I'm saying lately how it's been with me trying to get these videos out, man. It's I'm gonna go into all of it, you know, as time permits. But man, it's like Moses, man, working with the people trying to wake him up. But it took him 40 years, man, to do that, and I'm not Moses, so I'm gonna give you that blueprint, you know, and then we just shapeshift and move on to the next situation. That's how I do. So I'm gonna go ahead and shut down. I thank you for listening on this one. As always, stay vigilant.